let's see how we can use this Pythagorean formula. We can use our knowledge about the Pythagorean theorem to be able to find the length of a missing side. So let's pretend like we do not know what the length of this side is. But we do know that the length of this side is 4 and the length of this side is 5. Now I'm using the same numbers that I used in the last two videos just so that we can prove how this works, because you already know that we're going to end up with 25 equals 25 if we plug in all the numbers, and that you might already have a sneak preview as to what this side equals. But let's pretend like we don't know. So the first thing we must know is whether or not this is a right angle, and I'm going to say it is because I've just given you the symbol that indicates that it is a right angle. And since that's a right angle, that tells me that the side opposite the right angle is going to be the hypotenuse, and the hypotenuse is always indicated by the letter C in this formula right here. So I already know that C equals 5. I also know that one of these other two sides or legs in the right triangle equals 4. I don't know what the other one is. And it doesn't really matter whether I substitute 4 in for B or 4 in for A. It just doesn't really matter as long as I only do it for one of them, and then I solve for the other one. So in this case, I'm going to make 4 equal A. Okay? So if I make 4 equal A, then I'm going to substitute the numbers in that I know into this formula. So I have A squared, which is 4. I didn't write that down. Okay, so that means I'm going to have 4 squared, because I just substituted 4 in for A. So 4 squared, I took care of that one. Oops. Plus, took care of that one. Plus B squared. I don't know what B is. I'm making this question mark side B. I don't know the length of that side. And equals, and I do know what C squared is. C equals 5. Okay, so now I'm going to go to the next page, and I'm actually going to solve for B, which is the unknown side. Okay, that's going to get me the answer for this side right here, for the length of that side. So 4 squared plus B squared equals 5. So here I have 4 squared plus B squared equals 5. So now when I go to solve, oh, I'm sorry, 5 squared. I messed up. I did not write the square here. That's very important. That's part of the formula. I'm glad I actually made that mistake so I can make that clear. All right, so 4 squared plus B squared equals 5 squared. So now going to solve it, I have 4 squared equals 16 plus B squared. Well, I don't know what B is. That B squared is going to have to stay just like that. Equals 5 squared, which is 25. Now, in order to find out what B is, I'm going to have to isolate it. So in order to isolate it, I'm going to have to move some things around in this equation back and forth, but still keeping the equation balanced meanwhile. So I know that if I can subtract 16 from this side, that will actually take away that 16 on this side. But if I do that on this side, I'm going to have to do that on the other side to keep the equation balanced. So I'm going to subtract 16 from both sides. That will eliminate that one. When I bring this down, I'll end up with B squared equals 9. Okay. Now, this is the part where a lot of students get stuck. B squared equals 9. What do you do with that? How do you find out what B equals if you know what B squared equals? Well, the first thing you want to think of is, well, what number times itself 2 times equals 9? So in other words, B times B, or actually let me write that down here. B times B equals 9. That's all that means. B squared is B times B equals 9. So what number times itself equals 9? And most of you will know that 3 times 3 equals 9. So 3 times itself equals 9. So it must be 3. But another way you can answer this is you can use the technique of taking the square root of both sides. If B squared equals 9, then the square root of B squared must equal the square root of 9. I can take the square root of both sides to keep the equation balanced. So when I take the square root of B squared, I'm going to end up with B And when I take the square root of 9, I'm going to end up with 3. Now, technically, there are two answers to this. 3 times 3 equals 9, and so does negative 3 times negative 3. That equals 9 as well. I could say that I have two answers. B equals either 3 or negative 3. But since I'm talking about lengths of a side of a triangle, it's impossible to have negative 3 centimeters, for example. It would have to be positive 3. So just by the context of the problem, I have eliminated one of those answers, and now I have ended up with B equals 3. Okay, and if you remember from the previous two videos, I did indeed have 3 squared plus 4 squared equals 5 squared.